It started with something small. Not love, not marriage, not even trust. Just convenience. One shared account, one extra bank card, one person saying, "Can you transfer it for me? My app isn't working." That's how Derek Reed lost almost everything he spent 10 years building. And the worst part, by the time he realised what was happening, she was already gone. Tonight's story isn't about a quick scam. It's about patience, planning, and what happens when someone spends years becoming the person you'd never suspect. Because sometimes the most dangerous exit strategy doesn't happen overnight. It's built slowly, quietly, across an entire relationship. And when it finally happens, there's almost nothing left to stop it. Derek was 52 when he moved to Thailand, not because he hated his old life, but because he was tired of surviving it. Doncaster had become repetitive. Cold mornings, long shifts, microwave dinners in front of a television nobody was really watching. After his divorce, the silence in his flat started feeling heavier than the marriage itself. So he left. At first it was supposed to be temporary, 6 months, maybe a year. But Pattaya gave him something England no longer did. Warm nights, cheap food, people smiling at him again. And eventually Mina. He met her in a small restaurant away from the nightlife districts that tourists usually crowded into. She wasn't loud, wasn't aggressive, didn't flirt the way the others did. That mattered to Derek. She remembered things, how he liked his coffee, that he hated seafood, that he called his daughter every Sunday, no matter what. Little things. The kind that slowly convince you someone genuinely cares. And for a long time it felt real, because maybe part of it actually was. That's what made this dangerous. The relationship didn't move quickly. That's what Derek told himself whenever his friends questioned it. She's different. That sentence became his shield. Different from the girls in the bars, different from the stories online, different from the warnings. And to be fair, Mina played the role perfectly. She never asked for expensive gifts early on, never pressured him for money, never demanded anything immediately. In fact, she often resisted. When Derek offered to pay her rent, she refused the first 2 times. When he suggested opening a shared account for household bills, she hesitated. That hesitation mattered, because hesitation creates trust. People trust resistance more than agreement. And slowly, over years, Derek stopped separating his life from hers. First came small conveniences, a second card connected to his account, shared utility payments, a transfer app installed on her phone. Nothing dramatic, nothing reckless, just tiny decisions repeated over time until the line between his money and their money disappeared completely. That's how most disasters happen. Not through one giant mistake, but through 1,000 reasonable ones. By year 6, they looked married, even though they technically weren't. They shared a condo, shared expenses, shared routines. Derek even updated his retirement paperwork, not because Mina asked him to, but because he wanted to show commitment. And every time doubt appeared, Mina knew exactly how to calm it. Too perfectly, actually. If Derek became suspicious after hearing another horror story online, she'd go quiet for days. Not angry, hurt. That was worse, because guilt is stronger than logic. You think I'm like them? That sentence crushed him every time. So he'd apologise. and after enough apologies, your brain stops questioning. But there were signs, small ones, almost invisible. Mina became more protective of her phone, started taking walks late at night, occasionally disappeared for an hour with vague explanations. Derek noticed. Of course he noticed. But human beings are experts at protecting the reality they want to believe. So, instead of confronting her directly, he explained it away. She's stressed. She's tired. She's helping family. Besides, 10 years changes your thinking. You don't expect betrayal after 10 years. You expect stability. That assumption would destroy him. 3 months before everything collapsed, Mina started talking more about the future. Investments, property, security. At first, Derek loved hearing it. It made the relationship feel permanent, adult. Then came the banking conversations. Mina suggested simplifying everything. One central account, fewer transfer fees, easier access during emergencies. Again, reasonable. That's what made it effective. Nothing sounded criminal. Nothing sounded insane. And Derek resisted at first. That part mattered, because he wasn't stupid. He actually argued against it for weeks. Said he preferred keeping separate structures. Said fraud was too common. Mina never pushed aggressively. She simply waited. Patience is powerful when someone already trusts you. Eventually, Derek gave in. Mostly because he was exhausted from feeling suspicious. People don't realise how tiring distrust becomes inside long-term relationships. Eventually, your brain wants peace more than caution. So, he added her. More permissions, more access, more control. And somewhere during that process, he crossed a line he didn't realise existed. The final week felt strangely normal. That's what haunted him later. There was no huge fight, no dramatic warning. They watched television together 2 nights before it happened. Ordered takeaway. Talked about replacing the condo furniture. Normal. Completely normal. Then came Friday night. Derek fell asleep around midnight. At 3:14 a.m, the first transfer happened. Then another. Different amounts, different destinations, some local, some international. By 4:07 a.m, their primary account was nearly empty. Retirement savings, emergency reserves, investment funds, gone. But the transfers weren't random. That was the terrifying part. This had been prepared carefully. Limits had already been adjusted weeks earlier. Verification devices had already been linked. Security alerts had already been redirected. Derek didn't know it yet, but the system had been slowly reconfigured around him for months. He woke up just after 7. The condo felt quiet, too quiet. Mina wasn't beside him. Her closet doors were open. Half the clothes were gone. At first, his brain refused to understand, because shock protects you. He checked his phone, missed notifications, bank alerts, authentication emails. His stomach dropped instantly. One balance showed nearly 0, then another. Derek actually thought it was a banking error. That's how denial works. Your brain searches for technical explanations before emotional ones. He called Mina immediately. No answer. Again. Then the phone switched off completely. The next 6 hours became a blur. Bank calls, frozen accounts, security departments. But every conversation ended the same way. Sir, the transfers were authorised. That sentence nearly broke him, because technically they were. The permissions were real. The devices were approved, the credentials were legitimate, and that's the nightmare of modern financial betrayal. Sometimes nobody hacked you. You opened the door yourself years earlier. Derek tried fighting back, tried reversing the wires. Some banks stalled. Others said the funds had already moved offshore. Multiple countries, digital wallets, burner accounts. Every hour that passed, the money moved further away, like watching someone erase your life in real time. But the financial loss wasn't even the worst part. It was the humiliation. Derek stopped answering friends, stopped leaving the condo, because once reality settled in, he realised how many warnings he ignored, how many conversations he defended her during, how many people quietly saw this coming before he did. That realisation crushed him harder than the empty accounts. And meanwhile, Mina had vanished completely. Social media deleted, messaging apps gone, old numbers disconnected. It was surgical, not emotional, not chaotic, professional. That terrified him most, because random betrayal is easier to process than calculated betrayal. Weeks later, investigators uncovered pieces of the setup. Shell accounts created months earlier, temporary identities, prepaid SIM cards, even travel records suggested Mina may have planned the exit nearly a year in advance. Derek couldn't process that timeline, because while he was planning anniversaries, someone else was planning extraction routes. That destroys a person psychologically, not just because of the money, but because it forces you to question every memory attached to the relationship. Was any of it real? The dinners, the holidays, the comfort, the affection? Or was he simply living inside a performance for 10 years? That question never fully leaves victims like Derek, and this is the part most people misunderstand. Long-term cons don't work because the victim is stupid. They work because trust changes the brain, especially over time. The longer someone remains consistent, the less defensive you become. That's human nature, and predators understand that better than most normal people do. They don't rush. They study routines, emotions, weaknesses, habits. Then they slowly position themselves between you and your defences until eventually you stop protecting yourself entirely because you think you're safe. That illusion cost Derek nearly everything. Today, he still lives in Thailand, but barely. Most of his retirement disappeared. Relationships with family became strained, and emotionally, he admits he never fully recovered. Not from the money, from the uncertainty, because after 10 years, he still doesn't know which part of the relationships were real. And maybe that's the cruelest part of all. Not losing your savings, losing your ability to trust your own judgment. So before you merge accounts, before you hand complete financial access, before you confuse time with safety, remember this. Some betrayals don't arrive suddenly. They arrive slowly, smiling beside you for years, waiting for the exact moment you stop questioning them. And once that comes, they don't take a little, they take everything. If this story made you think differently about trust, relationships, or protecting your finances abroad, make sure you subscribe to Passport Romance Stories, because the next story might feel even more real than this one.